I was cursed to fall in love with a vampire alpha. What I did that night made him mine forever. Chapter 1. The blood moon hung low over Shadowcrest, painting the cobblestone streets in shades of crimson that made Ivy's skin crawl. She pressed herself against the cold brick wall of the old apothecary, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The curse mark on her left wrist burned like liquid fire, the intricate vine pattern glowing an ominous silver that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her racing heart. 3 weeks. That's all she had left before the curse consumed her completely. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to another story here on the channel. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Seriously, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. I absolutely love seeing where you all are tuning in from. And how are you doing today? I hope you're cozy, maybe with some tea or hot chocolate, because this one's going to take you on quite the ride. Oh, and before we dive in, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in this tale. This channel is all about those intense, emotional, can't look away stories, and your support means everything. Now let me tell you about Ivy because her life was about to get a whole lot more complicated than she ever imagined. Ivy had always known she was different. Growing up in Shadowcrest, a town where the supernatural walked freely among humans who'd long ago accepted their existence, being different was relative. But Ivy wasn't a witch, wasn't a shifter, wasn't a vampire. She was human, painfully, vulnerably human with one exception. She could see the threads. Invisible to everyone else, these shimmering strands of fate-connected people bound them together in ways they didn't understand. Ivy had learned to ignore them, to look away when she saw the bright gold threads of true love, or the sickly green ones of toxic obsession. She'd learned that knowing who was meant to be together, and who was destined to destroy each other was more curse than gift. But she'd never seen a thread like the one attached to her own heart. It was black. Pure, absolute black, darker than the night sky. And it led somewhere into the heart of the Nocturne District, the vampire quarter where humans went only if they had a death wish or a debt to pay. Ivy had neither. Or at least she hadn't until 3 weeks ago. The night she'd stumbled into that abandoned church on the outskirts of town, seeking shelter from a sudden storm. She'd had no idea she was interrupting an ancient ritual. She'd had no idea that the circle of candles and strange symbols carved into the stone floor were part of a binding ceremony. And she definitely had no idea that by stepping into that circle, by accidentally touching that silver chalice filled with blood that smelled like wine and roses, she'd activate a curse that had been waiting 300 years for the right person to claim it. The old woman who'd appeared, materializing out of shadows like smoke, had eyes that burned with malevolent glee. Finally, she'd whispered, her voice like dried leaves scraping against stone. Finally, someone worthy of my grandson's curse. Before Ivy could run, before she could scream, the woman had grabbed her wrist and spoken words in a language that made Ivy's bones ache. The pain had been instantaneous, white-hot agony searing through her veins as the mark appeared on her skin, a thorned vine wrapping around her wrist, each thorn dripping with what looked like tiny droplets of blood. You will fall in love with him, the crone had said, her smile revealing teeth far too sharp for any human. My grandson Aiden, the vampire alpha of the Nocturne clan. You will fall so deeply, so completely, that your heart will forget how to beat without him. But he, she'd cackled then, the sound echoing off the church walls. He will feel nothing. No bond, no pull, no love. He will be free while you suffer. Unless, she'd added, her grip tightening until Ivy felt her bones would snap. You can make him love you back before the third blood moon. If you succeed, the curse breaks and you both live. If you fail, she'd trailed off, but her meaning was clear. Ivy would die. And from the look in the old woman's eyes, that was exactly what she wanted. Now, standing in the alley with the second blood moon overhead, Ivy had 1 month left. 1 month to make a vampire alpha, a creature who'd lived for over 300 years, who commanded an entire clan, who was said to be as cold and merciless as winter itself, fall in love with her. 1 month to do the impossible. The burning in her wrist intensified, and Ivy looked down to see the mark was glowing brighter. The black thread attached to her heart tugged, pulling her forward like a fish on a hook. She'd learned over the past 3 weeks that fighting it only made the pain worse. The curse wanted her to go to him, wanted her to seek out Aiden, wanted her to throw herself into the path of the one being who could either save her or destroy her. Ivy had researched everything she could about Aiden Nocturne. The libraries, both human and supernatural, had plenty of information, none of it comforting. He was the youngest vampire to ever become an alpha, taking control of the Nocturne clan at the age of 32, which was practically infantile in vampire years. He'd held that position for 3 centuries, ruling with an iron fist wrapped in velvet courtesy. He was beautiful according to the accounts, dangerously so, with hair as black as a raven's wing and eyes that shifted from deep crimson to molten gold depending on his mood or his hunger. He was tall, imposing, with the kind of presence that made even other supernaturals take a step back. He was also completely untouchable. In 300 years no one had ever claimed to be close to him. He had allies, subordinates, business partners. But friends? Lovers? Those seemed to be concepts entirely foreign to Aiden Nocturne. Which meant Ivy was well and truly screwed. The thread pulled again, harder this time, and Ivy gasped as pain lanced through her chest. She had to go. The curse wouldn't let her stay away much longer. Every day the pull grew stronger, the pain more intense. Soon she wouldn't have a choice at all. Fine. If she was going to die anyway, she might as well face her fate on her own terms. Ivy pushed off from the wall and started walking toward the Nocturne district. Her footsteps echoed in the empty street, the sound swallowed quickly by the unnatural silence that always seemed to blanket the vampire quarter. The buildings here were older, grander, with architecture that spoke of old money and older magic. Wrought iron gates guarded estates that sprawled across multiple city blocks. Gas lamps, actual gas lamps, because apparently vampires were as pretentious as the stories claimed, cast pools of golden light that did nothing to chase away the shadows. The Nocturne mansion sat at the very heart of the district, a sprawling Gothic masterpiece of dark stone and stained glass that looked like something out of a nightmare. Or a fairy tale. Ivy couldn't decide which. She stopped at the gates, her hand hovering over the iron bars. They were cold enough to burn, warded with magic that would keep out anyone uninvited. But the moment her skin made contact, the gates swung open with a groan that sounded almost pleased. Of course, the curse wanted her here. It had probably been sending out invitations on her behalf. Ivy walked up the long drive, past perfectly manicured gardens where night-blooming flowers released scents that made her head swim. The front door, massive wooden, carved with images of ravens and roses, opened before she could knock. A woman stood in the doorway. She was petite, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and eyes the color of ice. Her smile was polite but didn't reach those cold eyes. "Miss Ivy Thorne," she said, and Ivy's heart stuttered. How did she know her name? "We've been expecting you. The Alpha will see you now." "I what? How did you?" "This way, please." The woman turned and glided into the house, clearly expecting Ivy to follow. This was wrong. All of this was wrong. Ivy's instincts screamed at her to run, but the thread around her heart pulled tight, and she found herself stepping over the threshold. The interior of the mansion was exactly what she'd expected. All dark wood and rich fabrics, paintings of stern-faced ancestors, and chandeliers that dripped with crystals that caught the candlelight and threw it across the walls in dancing patterns. But there was something else too. Something Ivy hadn't anticipated. It felt lived in. There were books scattered on side tables, a throw blanket draped over a chair, a coffee mug. Actual coffee, she could smell it, sitting on a desk they passed. These weren't the trappings of a monster's lair. This was someone's home. The woman led Ivy through a maze of hallways until they reached a set of double doors. She knocked once and a voice from within called out, "Enter." The voice was deep, cultured, with an accent Ivy couldn't quite place. It was also the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard, and she hated herself for thinking that. The woman pushed open the doors and gestured for Ivy to go inside. The room beyond was a study, lined floor to ceiling with books. A fire crackled in an enormous fireplace, casting the whole space in a warm amber glow. And there, standing by the window with his back to her, was Aiden Nocturne. He was taller than she'd imagined, broader. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars that looked impossibly old. His hair fell just past his collar, as black as she'd read, and when he turned to face her, Ivy forgot how to breathe. He wasn't just beautiful. He was devastating. His face was all sharp angles and elegant lines, with high cheekbones and a jaw that could cut glass. His eyes, currently a deep burgundy, studied her with an intensity that made her feel like he could see straight through to her soul. And his mouth. Ivy forced herself to look away before she did something stupid like stare. "Miss Thorne," he said, and there was that voice again wrapping around her name like a caress. "I wondered when you'd finally work up the courage to visit." "You know who I am," Ivy said, proud that her voice only shook a little. Aiden's lips curved into something that might have been a smile on someone less terrifying. "Of course. Did you think my grandmother could place a curse involving me without my knowledge?" He moved away from the window, each step measured and graceful. "I've known about you since the moment you stepped into that circle 3 weeks ago." The casual admission stole what little breath Ivy had left. "You knew? This whole time you knew and you just... what? Waited." "I was curious," Aiden said simply. He circled her slowly, like a predator assessing prey, and Ivy had to fight the urge to bolt. "Curious to see if you would come. If you would fight the curse or embrace it. If you would be brave or foolish." And Ivy lifted her chin, meeting his eyes despite the fear clawing at her throat. "What's your verdict?" Aiden stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could feel the unnatural cold radiating from his skin, could catch the scent of something dark and spicy that made her head spin. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and caught her left wrist in his hand. His skin was ice cold, but his touch was surprisingly gentle as he turned her arm, studying the glowing curse mark. "I think," he said softly, his thumb tracing over one of the thorns, and Ivy shivered. "You're going to be far more interesting than I anticipated." He looked up, and for just a moment, something flickered in those burgundy eyes. Something that looked almost like recognition, understanding, but it was gone before Ivy could be sure, replaced by cool amusement. "Tell me, Miss Thorne, do you believe in fate?" The question caught her off guard. I don't know. Maybe. Aiden released her wrist and stepped back. "I don't. I've lived 300 years, and in all that time, I've learned that fate is simply what we call the consequences of our choices." His eyes hardened. "My grandmother made a choice when she cursed you. You made a choice when you walked into that church. And I..." He paused, and something dangerous flashed across his face. "I made a choice a very long time ago that led to this moment." "What choice?" Ivy whispered. "That," Aiden said, "is a story for another time. For now we should discuss the terms of your stay." "My what?" "You can't make me fall in love with you." The words dripped with amused skepticism. "If you're not here, can you? And the curse will only grow more painful the longer you fight it. So you'll stay here in the mansion until either the curse is broken or..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. "Why would you let me stay?" Ivy asked suspiciously. "What do you get out of this?" Aiden's smile widened, showing just a hint of fong. "Entertainment. It's been a very long time since anything has surprised me, Miss Thorne. Perhaps you'll be the exception." Before Ivy could respond, before she could tell him exactly where he could shove his entertainment, the curse mark on her wrist flared hot enough to make her cry out. She stumbled, and Aiden caught her, his arm steady despite the cold of his skin. "Easy," he murmured, and there was something in his voice she couldn't identify. "Fighting it only makes it worse." Ivy looked up at him, at this impossible creature who held her life in his hands, and felt the curse mark pulse in response to their proximity. The black thread that connected her heart to his glowed faintly in her vision, and she wondered if he could see it too. "I won't fall in love with you," she said, even though they both knew it was a lie. The curse would make sure of that. Aiden's expression softened just slightly, and he helped her straighten. "We'll see," he said quietly. "We'll see." And as Ivy stood in that warm study, surrounded by books and firelight, with a vampire alpha's cold hand still steadying her, she felt something shift in the air around them. Something that tasted like possibility and danger, and a fate she could no longer run from. The game had begun, and Ivy had no idea if she was the player or the prize. But one thing was certain, by the time the third blood moon rose, everything would change. Either she'd break the curse and somehow make this impossible man love her, or she'd die trying. And looking into Aiden's eyes, Those eyes that held 3 centuries of secrets and sorrows. Ivy suspected there were worse ways to go than falling in love with a monster, even if that monster had no intention of falling back. Chapter 2. Character Foundation. The room Aiden assigned to Ivy was nothing like she'd expected. Instead of some dark, austere chamber befitting a vampire's lair, she found herself in a spacious suite decorated in soft creams and golds, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the mansion's gardens. The bed was enormous, piled high with pillows that looked like clouds, and there was even a reading nook tucked into a corner with shelves already filled with books. "This is nice," Ivy said, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. Aiden stood in the doorway, his hands clasped behind his back. In the candlelight of the hallway, his features seemed softer somehow, less intimidating. "Did you expect a coffin and chains?" "Little bit, yeah." That almost smile appeared again. "How disappointing I must be. The bathroom is through there." He gestured to a door on the left. "You'll find everything you need. Clothes, toiletries. Clara, my housekeeper, has excellent taste. Dinner will be served at 8, though I imagine you're not hungry after your journey here." He was right. Ivy's stomach was twisted in knots. But she asked anyway. "You eat dinner?" "I appreciate the ritual of it, even if the food holds no appeal." Aiden's eyes tracked over her face, studying her with that same unsettling intensity. "I'll leave you to settle in. Don't try to leave the grounds. The wards won't let you pass, and it would only cause you pain." "So I'm a prisoner." "You're a guest with limited exit privileges," Aiden corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" He tilted his head, considering. "Would you prefer I throw you out? Let you suffer alone while the curse eats away at you? I assure you, Miss Thorne, this arrangement benefits you far more than it benefits me." Ivy wanted to argue, but the curse mark on her wrist pulsed in agreement with his words. Being close to Aiden eased the pain. Being away from him would be agony. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked quietly. "And don't say entertainment. Nobody does something like this just for fun." For a moment something flickered across Aiden's face, something that looked almost like regret. But it was gone so quickly Ivy thought she might have imagined it. "Get some rest," he said instead of answering. "Tomorrow we'll discuss the rules of your stay." He turned to leave, but Ivy called out, "Wait. Your grandmother, the one who cursed me. You said you made a choice that led to this. What did you do to make her hate you so much that she'd curse an innocent person just to hurt you?" Aiden paused, his hand on the doorframe. For a long moment he didn't speak, and Ivy thought he might not answer at all. Then, without turning around, he said, "I refused to be the monster she wanted me to be. And for that she's been punishing me for 300 years. You're just the latest weapon in her arsenal." Before Ivy could process that, he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him with a finality that echoed through the quiet room. Ivy stood there, staring at the closed door, her mind racing. A weapon. That's what she was. A tool for revenge in a centuries-old family conflict. The thought should have made her angry, should have filled her with righteous indignation. Instead, she just felt tired and confused. Because the way Aiden had said those words, the note of something that sounded almost like pain in his voice, it didn't match the cold, untouchable alpha she'd expected to find. The curse mark flared again. A reminder that she didn't have time to feel sorry for herself. 1 month. She had 1 month to figure out this impossible puzzle, to make a 300-year-old vampire fall in love with her when he'd apparently spent centuries avoiding that exact thing. Ivy moved to the window and looked out at the gardens below. In the moonlight, she could see paths winding between flower beds, a fountain in the center catching the silver light. It was beautiful in a haunting, ethereal way that made her chest ache. The black thread connecting her heart to Aiden's glowed faintly in her vision, leading down through the floor, through the mansion, to wherever he'd gone. She pressed her hand against the glass, feeling its cool surface beneath her palm. "What am I supposed to do?" she whispered to her reflection. The girl staring back at her looked small and lost, with shadows under her eyes and fear in her gaze. This wasn't who Ivy wanted to be, frightened and helpless. But she didn't know how to be anything else right now. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. The door opened to reveal Clara, the silver-haired housekeeper from earlier. She carried a tray with tea and what looked like small sandwiches. "I thought you might be hungry despite what the alpha said," Clara said. setting the tray on a small table near the reading nook. Humans rarely eat when they're nervous, but they should. Thank you, Ivy said, surprised by the kindness. Clara nodded, her ice blue eyes warming slightly. I've prepared some nightclothes for you as well. They're in the wardrobe. She hesitated, then added, the Alpha. He's not what you think he is. Ivy turned from the window. What do you mean? He seems cold, distant. And in many ways he is. 3 centuries of isolation will do that to a person, even a vampire. Clara's expression softened. But he's also more human than he'd like anyone to believe. His grandmother cursed him long ago, you know. Different from your curse, but a curse nonetheless. What kind of curse? Clara shook her head. That's not my story to tell. But I'll say this, Aiden has spent 300 years believing he's unworthy of love, that he's somehow fundamentally broken. His grandmother made sure of that. She moved toward the door, then paused. You're the first person in all that time who's been forced to really see him. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Before Ivy could ask what she meant, Clara slipped out of the room, leaving Ivy alone with more questions than answers. She forced herself to eat a sandwich, though it tasted like ash in her mouth, and drank the tea, which at least warmed the cold knot in her stomach. Then she explored her new prison, or guest quarters as Aiden would probably insist. The bathroom was stunning, all marble and gold fixtures, with a tub large enough to swim in. The wardrobe held clothes in her exact size, ranging from casual jeans and sweaters to elegant dresses that looked like they cost more than her monthly rent back home. On the vanity she found expensive cosmetics and toiletries, everything perfectly arranged. It was surreal, like stepping into someone else's life. A much wealthier, more glamorous someone else. Ivy changed into the silk nightgown Clara had left out, forest green and far more luxurious than anything she'd ever owned, and climbed into the massive bed. The sheets were soft as water, the pillows perfect, but sleep felt impossible. Her mind kept replaying the encounter with Aiden. The way he'd touched her wrist, so carefully despite his obvious power. The flicker of emotion in his eyes when he'd spoken about his grandmother. The warmth in his study, as if he'd tried to make it welcoming despite his nature. He wasn't what she'd expected, and that made everything so much more complicated. Because how was she supposed to guard her heart against someone who was already more interesting, more complex, than any person she'd ever met? The curse would make her fall in love with him regardless, but Ivy had hoped she could at least resist it emotionally, keep some part of herself separate and safe. Now she wasn't so sure that was possible. Chapter 3. The Inciting Incident. Ivy woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For a moment, she forgot where she was, luxuriating in the soft sheets and the warmth of the morning sun. Then reality crashed back, and she sat up with a gasp, checking her wrist. The curse mark was still there, the thorned vine dark against her pale skin. But it wasn't glowing, and for the first time in weeks it didn't hurt. Being in the mansion, close to Aiden, had already eased the constant ache she'd been living with. A knock sounded at the door. "Come in," Ivy called, expecting Clara. Instead, a young woman entered carrying a breakfast tray. She had warm brown skin and dark curls pulled back in a ponytail, and when she smiled, dimples appeared in her cheeks. "Good morning. I'm Mara, one of the house staff. Clara sent me with breakfast." She set the tray across Ivy's lap with practiced ease. "There's coffee, fresh fruit, pastries, and eggs if you want them. Also, the Alpha requests your presence in the library at 10 o'clock. "Requests or demands?" Ivy asked wryly. Mara's smile widened. "With the Alpha, those are usually the same thing. But he did say please if that helps." She moved to the windows and pulled back the curtains fully, letting in more light. "Fair warning, he's in a mood this morning. Not a bad mood exactly, but contemplative. Which usually means he's going to do something unexpected." "How long have you worked here?" Ivy asked, curious about this cheerful presence in what she'd assumed would be a gloomy household. 5 years. Best job I've ever had, honestly. The pay is incredible, the benefits are amazing, and the Alpha doesn't actually drink from his staff, despite what the rumors say." Mara leaned against the window frame. "Plus, Clara makes the most amazing supernatural creature food you've ever tasted. She's a culinary witch. Her cooking literally has magical properties." "She's a witch." "Yep. So am I actually. Kitchen magic is my specialty. Mara's expression turned more serious. I heard about the curse. That's rough. But if it helps, the alpha is a good man vampire whatever. He'll do right by you. Ivy wasn't sure how to respond to that. He barely knows me. Maybe. But he knew you were coming for 3 weeks and still prepared this room. Had Clara stock it with everything you'd need. Made sure there'd be staff who could help you adjust. That's not nothing. Mara pushed off from the window. Anyway, eat up. You'll need your strength for whatever he has planned. After Mara left, Ivy forced herself to eat, though anxiety killed most of her appetite. At 9:30, she showered and dressed in jeans and a soft blue sweater she found in the wardrobe, then made her way downstairs. The mansion was even more impressive in daylight. Large windows let in sunshine that caught on crystal chandeliers and made the dark wood gleam. Ivy passed several other staff members, all of them polite, all of them openly curious, before finding the library. It was the most beautiful room she'd ever seen. 3 stories tall with a spiral staircase leading to upper galleries, every wall lined with books. Some looked ancient, their spines cracked with age. Others appeared brand new. And in the center of it all, sitting at a massive oak desk, was Aiden. He looked up as she entered and Ivy's breath caught. In the morning light, his eyes had shifted to a deep amber, like whiskey held up to the sun. He changed into dark slacks and a burgundy sweater that made his pale skin seem to glow. Miss Thorne. Punctual. I appreciate that. He stood, closing the book he'd been reading. Did you sleep well? Better than expected, Ivy admitted. Your housekeeper has magic hands when it comes to beds. Something that might have been amusement flickered across Aiden's face. Clara has magic hands when it comes to most things. She's been with me for nearly a century. I'd be lost without her. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Please sit. We have much to discuss. Ivy sat, trying not to feel like she was being called into the principal's office. Aiden remained standing, moving to lean against the front of his desk, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. The curse, he began without preamble, is more complex than you realize. My grandmother is many things. Vindictive, cruel, obsessed with control, but she's not stupid. This curse wasn't designed just to torture you, or even to torture me through you. Then what's it for? Power. Aiden's expression darkened. The curse binds you to me, yes. It forces you to love me, creates a connection that grows stronger every day. But there's another aspect to it, one my grandmother is counting on. He paused, his jaw tightening. If you die because the curse isn't broken, that death will fuel a spell she's been building for decades. Your life force, your pain, the love the curse forced you to feel. All of it will become energy she can use to break my own curse and reclaim control over me. The casual way he said it made Ivy's stomach turn. So I'm not just a weapon. I'm a battery. Crudely put, but yes. Aiden's eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw genuine anger there. Not at her, but for her. I won't let that happen. You can't exactly make yourself fall in love with me on command, Ivy pointed out. Even if you wanted to. No. But I can work to break the curse another way. Aiden pushed off from the desk and began to pace, his movements restless. Curses always have loopholes, weaknesses. My grandmother is powerful, but she's also arrogant. She believes I'm too cold, too damaged, to ever truly connect with anyone. That's her assumption, her fatal flaw. Is she right? The question slipped out before Ivy could stop it. Aiden stopped pacing and turned to face her fully. Would you like the comforting lie, or the complicated truth? Truth. Always. Then the truth is, I don't know. He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture surprisingly human. I've spent 3 centuries alone by choice and by curse. I've deliberately isolated myself from anything that could lead to genuine connection because I still believe that I'm fundamentally incapable of it. But Clara seems to think otherwise. Mara too, from what I understand. They seem to have this absurd faith that underneath all my carefully constructed defenses, there's something worth saving. He moved closer, and Ivy had to resist the urge to lean back. So here's what I propose, we work together. You'll stay here, we'll spend time together. and will actively try to find a way to either break the curse or at least understand it well enough to undermine my grandmother's plans. In the process, he hesitated, and something vulnerable flashed across his face. In the process, perhaps we'll discover whether I'm truly as hollow as I believe myself to be. Ivy's heart was racing. This wasn't what she'd expected. Not this honesty, not this strange partnership he was proposing. And if we fail? If you really are incapable of love, then I'll find another way to save you. The conviction in his voice was absolute. My grandmother has caused enough suffering. I won't let her add you to her list of victims. The curse mark on Ivy's wrist pulsed, warm and insistent, as if responding to Aiden's words. She looked down at it, then back up at him. Okay, partners. But I want ground rules. Aiden's eyebrows rose. Such as? No lying. If you're going to be honest like this, I need you to stay honest. I can't navigate this if I don't know where I stand with you. Ivy stood, needing to feel less at a disadvantage. Second, I need to know more about your curse, your grandmother, all of it. I can't help break this thing if I don't understand what we're dealing with. Agreed. Third, Ivy met his eyes. You have to actually try. I know you think you're broken or whatever, but going through the motions won't cut it. If we're doing this, you have to be willing to actually let me in, even if it's uncomfortable. For a long moment, Aiden just looked at her, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he extended his hand. Deal. But I have one condition of my own. What? You have to promise me something, Ivy. The use of her first name sent a shiver down her spine. If we can't break the curse, if it comes down to the wire and you're going to die, you have to promise you'll let me turn you. Ivy's eyes widened. Turn me? Into a vampire. She was already starting to care about him. Not because of the curse forcing her to, but because underneath all his ice and isolation, she glimpsed something worth fighting. Aiden looked down at where her hand rested on his sleeve. I survived. I learned to wield power because it was the only thing that made sense in a world that had become senseless. But surviving isn't the same as living, Ivy. For 300 years I've been going through the motions, marking time, waiting for, I don't even know what. For this, Ivy suggested softly. For a chance to finally break free? Maybe. He covered her hand with his, and the touch sent warmth spiraling through Ivy's chest. Or maybe Morgana planned this too. Maybe this is just another way for her to prove I'm exactly what she said I was. You don't believe that, don't I? Aiden's eyes met hers, and the vulnerability in them stole her breath. How can I know what I feel is real, and what's just 3 centuries of conditioning? How can you trust anything I say or do when we're both trapped in curses designed to manipulate our emotions? It was a fair question, one Ivy had been avoiding asking herself. But standing here in the garden, with Aiden's hand warm over hers despite his vampire nature, feeling the genuine pain and confusion radiating from him, she realized something important. I can see the threads, remember? She said. Right now, looking at you, I can see the one connecting us. It's changing. Aiden frowned. Changing how? When I first saw it, it was pure black. Dark, foreboding, like something toxic. But now, Ivy focused on the thread, really looked at it for the first time since coming to the mansion. Now there are silver strands winding through it, and a few threads of blue. It's not all curse anymore, Aiden. We're building something real alongside it. His eyes widened. You can actually see that? I've never lied about the threads. They're as real to me as your eyes or your voice. Ivy squeezed his hand. Whatever we're building here, it's not just the curse forcing us together. There's something genuine happening too. For a moment, Aiden just stared at her, and Ivy could see him struggling with something internal. Then slowly, carefully, he lifted her hand and pressed it against his chest, right over where his heart would beat if he were still human. I don't know how to do this, he admitted quietly. I don't know how to be what you need, how to break these curses, how to trust that I'm capable of any of it. But he paused, searching for words. I find myself wanting to try. Not because of any curse or obligation, but because when I look at you, I feel something I haven't felt in 300 years. What's that? Curiosity about the future. The sense that maybe, possibly, there might be something worth looking forward to. His thumb traced over her knuckles. That terrifies me more than anything Morgana could do. Ivy's heart was hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. This moment felt fragile, precious, like something that could shatter if either of them moved wrong. But she had to ask. What would we be doing right now if there were no curses? If we just met normally? Aiden considered the question seriously. I'd probably be trying to convince you to have dinner with me. Somewhere quiet where we could talk without interruption. I'd want to know everything about you. Your favorite books, your dreams, what makes you laugh. A slight smile curved his lips. I'd be terribly nervous and trying to hide it, because you're remarkably beautiful and I'm extremely out of practice at courting anyone. Heat rushed to Ivy's cheeks. You think I'm beautiful? I think you're extraordinary. The words were simple, matter-of-fact, which somehow made them more powerful. The curse may have brought you here, but everything I'm learning about you, your intelligence, your courage, the way you see the world, that has nothing to do with magic and everything to do with who you are. Before Ivy could respond, a commotion from the house drew their attention. Clara appeared on the terrace, her normally composed expression tight with worry. Alpha, you're needed inside. Now. Aiden's entire demeanor shifted, becoming the commanding clan leader Ivy had heard about. What is it? A messenger from the Supernatural Council. They've received a complaint about an unregistered human staying on vampire territory without proper documentation. They're demanding to see Miss Thorne immediately. Ivy's stomach dropped. Your grandmother. Undoubtedly. Aiden's eyes had shifted to deep crimson, anger making them glow. She's trying to separate us, make the curse worse by forcing distance between us. What happens if I have to leave? You won't. The certainty in his voice was absolute. I'm the alpha of this clan, and this is my territory. The council can't force you off my property without my permission. But Clara's expression remained troubled. Alpha, the messenger said there were additional concerns. They've received reports that you're holding a human against her will, possibly for feeding purposes. That's absurd. We know that. But the council takes these accusations seriously, especially when they come from someone as influential as Morgana. Clara wrung her hands, a gesture Ivy had never seen from the normally unflappable housekeeper. They want to interview Miss Thorne privately. If she confirms you're not holding her prisoner, they'll leave. But if they suspect coercion, they could remove her from the property for her own safety, Aiden finished, his voice tight. And being separated from me would cause her unimaginable pain because of the curse. Ivy felt panic rising in her chest. How long would the interview take? An hour at most. But you'd need to leave the grounds for it. Council rules require neutral territory for interviews involving potential abuse cases. Clara looked between them. I'm sorry. I know the timing is terrible. Aiden turned to Ivy, conflict clear on his face. It's your choice. We can refuse, but that would make the council even more suspicious. Or you can go, endure the pain for an hour, and hopefully clear this up so Morgana can't use it against us again. Ivy thought about it. An hour of pain versus potentially giving Morgana more ammunition to use against them. And more than that, this was a chance to prove to the council, and maybe to herself, that she was here by choice. I'll do it, she said. I can handle an hour. Ivy, the pain. I know. But we need to play this smart, right? Show them there's nothing wrong here, that I'm staying of my own free will. She managed a smile despite her racing heart. Besides, you'll owe me one. I plan to collect. Something that might have been admiration flashed across Aiden's face. You're braver than you know. Or stupider. Time will tell. Ivy looked at Clara. When do they want to meet? Within the hour. There's a council office downtown, neutral ground. I can drive you. As they headed back to the house, Aiden caught Ivy's elbow gently. The moment the interview is done, come straight back. Don't let them delay you. Don't accept any offers to go elsewhere. The longer you're away, the worse it will be. I understand. His hand slid down to clasp hers, and for a moment they just stood there, connected by more than just the curse. I meant what I said earlier, Aiden told her quietly. About wanting to try. Whatever happens with Morgana, with the council, with these curses, I want to see where this leads. Ivy squeezed his hand. Me too. As she followed Clara to the garage, Ivy felt the curse mark on her wrist begin to pulse with discomfort. They weren't even off the property yet, and already the separation was starting to hurt. This was going to be a very long hour. But as she glanced back at the mansion and saw Aiden watching from the terrace, his expression fierce and protective, Ivy realized something that both thrilled and terrified her. She didn't just need to break the curse to survive. She needed to break it because the thought of losing him, losing whatever this tentative, fragile thing between them was becoming, hurt more than any magical affliction ever could. And that meant she was already in far deeper than she'd planned. Chapter 5: The Midpoint Revelation. The council office was exactly as sterile and unwelcoming as Ivy had expected. White walls, fluorescent lighting, uncomfortable plastic chairs. The interviewer was a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she'd seen every trick in the book. By the time Ivy sat down across from her, the curse mark was burning like acid. Being 20 minutes away from Aiden felt like being torn in half. "Miss Thorne, I'm Investigator Phillips. I need to ask you some questions about your current living situation." The woman's voice was crisp, professional. "Please understand, we take accusations of human abuse very seriously." "I understand," Ivy managed, trying to focus through the pain. "Are you staying at the Nocturne estate of your own free will?" "Yes." "Has Alpha Aiden or any member of his clan threatened you, coerced you, or fed from you without your consent?" "No. Never." Phillips made a note on her tablet. "The complaint we received suggested you might be under some form of magical compulsion. Are you aware of any spells or enchantments that might be influencing your decisions?" Ivy hesitated. If she told the truth about the curse, would that make things better or worse? But lying to the Supernatural Council seemed like a spectacularly bad idea. "There is a curse," she admitted. "But it wasn't placed by Aiden. His grandmother cursed me 3 weeks ago. The curse makes it painful for me to be away from him, which is why I'm staying at the estate. But Aiden has been nothing but helpful. He's trying to break the curse, not exploit it." Philip's expression sharpened with interest. "Morgana Nocturne placed a curse on you? Can you describe the nature of this curse?" Ivy explained, showing the investigator the mark on her wrist. As she talked, Philip's expression shifted from suspicion to something that looked like sympathy. "I see. And you believe Alpha Aiden is genuinely trying to help you?" "I know he is. He's given me my own room, complete freedom within the estate, access to his library to research the curse. He's not holding me prisoner. He's protecting me. From his own grandmother." "Yes." Phillips leaned back in her chair. "Miss Thorne, I need to be honest with you. This isn't the first complaint we've received about the Nocturne family. Morgana has a complicated history with the council. She's powerful enough that we can't simply ignore her accusations, but we're also aware that she's not above using council protocols to harass her grandson." "So you knew this might be fake?" "We suspected. But we still have to investigate." Phillips glanced at her tablet. "However, I've seen enough. You're clearly not being held against your will, and the curse situation, while unfortunate, isn't Alpha Aiden's doing. I'll file a report clearing him of all charges." Relief flooded through Ivy. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. I'm going to recommend that the council assign a mediator to help resolve the curse situation. Morgana may be powerful, but she's not above our laws. Cursing an innocent human to punish her grandson crosses several lines." Phillips stood. "Clara is waiting to take you back. I imagine you're in considerable pain by now." That was an understatement. Ivy's entire body felt like it was being pulled apart. "How did you know?" "Separation curses always work that way. The longer you're apart, the worse it gets." Phillips opened the door. "For what it's worth, I think you're brave for enduring this to clear his name. Not many humans would do that for a vampire, curse or no curse." As Ivy stood, trying not to wince at the pain, Phillips added quietly, "And Miss Thorne? Be careful. I've been doing this job for 40 years, and I've never seen Morgana give up on a vendetta. Whatever she has planned, this is just the beginning." The drive back to the estate was agony. Clara drove as fast as she dared, but every mile felt like an eternity. By the time they pulled through the gates, Ivy was shaking, her vision blurred with pain. Aiden was waiting on the front steps. The moment the car stopped, he pulled open the door and gathered Ivy into his arms. The instant they touched, the pain began to recede, warmth flooding through her system like a healing balm. "I've got you," he murmured against her hair. "You're safe now." Ivy clung to him, breathing in his scent, something dark and spicy that seemed to wrap around her senses. "Council cleared you," Phillips said. "Sure. Claire already texted me with the details. You did perfectly." He lifted her effortlessly and carried her into the house. "But you're not leaving the estate again unless absolutely necessary. I won't have you suffering like this." He took her to the library and settled her on a plush sofa near the fireplace. Within minutes, Mara appeared with tea, and Clara brought a warm blanket. They fussed over her like mother hens until Aiden gently but firmly shooed them away. "Better?" he asked, sitting beside her once they were alone. Ivy nodded, though she was still trembling slightly. "That was worse than I expected." "I know. I felt it too." At her surprised look, he explained, "The curse creates a bond. It's not as strong from my end, but I could feel your pain, your fear." "It was." He trailed off, his jaw tight. "It was what?" "Unbearable. Knowing you were suffering because of my family, because of me, and not being able to do anything about it." His hand found hers, fingers lacing together. "I felt many things in 300 years, Ivy. But that kind of helplessness, that desperation to make your pain stop, that was new." The raw honesty in his voice made Ivy's chest ache. "You did help. You were here when I got back. That's what mattered." They sat in silence for a moment, the crackling fire the only sound. Then Aiden said, "While you were gone, I had time to think. And I made a decision." "What kind of decision?" "I'm going to confront Morgana." Ivy sat up straighter, alarm shooting through her. "Are you insane? She's trying to kill me to hurt you." "What makes you think?" "Exactly. She wants to hurt me, which means she wants me engaged, reactive. She expects me to sit here and try to solve this through research and strategy." Aiden's eyes gleamed with something dangerous. "But what she doesn't expect is for me to walk into her territory and demand she face me directly. That sounds like a spectacular way to get yourself killed." "She can't kill me. I'm too powerful, and doing so would bring the entire council down on her head. But she can be forced to negotiate." He turned to face Ivy fully. "I'm going to offer her a trade. She breaks your curse, and I'll give her what she's wanted for 300 years. Which is my cooperation. I'll work with her, be the weapon she always wanted me to be, for a set period of time. 10 years, maybe 20. In exchange, she breaks both curses, yours and mine, and leaves us alone after the term is up." Horror-filled Ivy. "No. Absolutely not. You're not sacrificing yourself." "It's not a sacrifice if it's a choice," Aiden interrupted gently. "And I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. You barely know me." "I know enough." His free hand came up to cup her cheek, and Ivy's breath caught. "I know you're brave enough to face a council investigation while in agonizing pain just to clear my name. I know you see threads that show you the truth of people's connections, and you chose to trust what you saw in ours. I know that in the handful of days you've been here, you've made me feel more alive than I have in centuries." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. "And I know that the thought of you dying, of Morgana using your death to fuel her spells, is completely unacceptable. If giving her 20 years of my existence means you get to live a full, happy, curse-free life, then it's not even a question." Tears burned in Ivy's eyes. "There has to be another way. Perhaps. But this is the fastest, surest option. And time is something we don't have much of." Aiden's expression softened. "I need you to trust me, Ivy. Can you do that?" Before she could answer, the library doors burst open. Clara stood there, her face pale. "Alpha, we have a visitor. She says she's expected." Aiden's expression went cold. "Morgana. She's in the entrance hall, refusing to leave until she speaks with you. She says." Clara swallowed hard. "She says she's come to collect what's hers." Ivy felt ice flood her veins. What does that mean? But Aiden was already standing, his entire demeanor shifting into something commanding and dangerous. "It means my grandmother's tired of playing games from a distance. She's come to finish this herself." He looked down at Ivy, and for just a moment, his mask slipped, showing the fear beneath. "Stay here. No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, you stay in this library. Do you understand? Aiden. Promise me, Ivy. Please. The desperation in his voice broke her heart. I promise. He nodded once, then strode toward the door. But before he left, he paused and looked back at her. If something happens to me, Clara knows what to do. She'll keep you safe. Nothing's going to happen to you, Ivy said fiercely, even though fear was clawing at her throat. Aiden's smile was sad and somehow ancient. I've been alive for 300 years, Ivy. I've learned that the universe rarely cares what we think will happen. But I'll do everything in my power to come back to you. That's a promise. Then he was gone, the library doors closing behind him with a finality that made Ivy want to scream. She stood, pacing the room like a caged animal. The curse mark on her wrist was pulsing, not with pain but with warning. Something bad was coming. She could feel it in her bones. Outside the library she heard voices rising. Aiden's calm and controlled, and a woman's voice that was like honey laced with poison. Morgana. Ivy pressed her ear to the door, trying to hear. Thought you'd learned your lesson about defying me. Your game's in now. She's mine, Aiden. The curse makes her mine, and when she dies that power becomes mine too. Over my dead body. Laughter cold and cruel. That can be arranged. Then silence. Terrible, crushing silence. Ivy's hand was on the doorknob before she realized she was moving. She knew she promised to stay, knew Aiden wanted her safe, but every instinct screamed that he needed her. The black thread connecting them pulsed once, twice, then began to fray. Something was wrong. Horribly wrong. Ivy threw open the library doors and ran toward the entrance hall. She didn't care about promises or safety. She cared about Aiden, about the impossible vampire who'd somehow become essential to her in the span of a few short days. What she found when she reached the entrance hall would change everything. Aiden was on his knees, his hands pressed against the floor, his face twisted in agony. Standing over him was a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a fairy tale, beautiful and terrible in equal measure, with long silver hair and eyes that burned like green fire. Morgana. And in her hand, she held something that made Ivy's blood run cold. A glowing orb that pulsed with the same black energy as Ivy's curse mark. Ah, Morgana said, her smile widening as she saw Ivy. The little human. How perfect. You're just in time to watch my grandson finally learn the cost of defying me. She raised the orb and Aiden screamed, a sound of such pure agony that it tore at Ivy's soul. And in that moment Ivy realized three things. First, that Morgana had never intended to wait for the curse to kill her naturally. She'd come to accelerate it, to drain Ivy's life force right here, right now, in front of Aiden as the ultimate punishment. Second, that if Morgana succeeded, it wouldn't just kill Ivy. The backlash would destroy Aiden too, breaking him in ways that 300 years of isolation never had. And third, most importantly, Ivy loved him. Not because of the curse, though that was there too, but because in the face of certain death, all she could think about was saving him. Because his pain hurt more than her own. Because in just a few short days, this broken, beautiful, impossible vampire had become her whole world. The black thread connecting them flared with brilliant light, silver and blue and gold all winding together, transforming into something neither curse nor compulsion, but something real and powerful and entirely their own. And as Morgana raised her hand to strike the final blow, Ivy did the only thing she could think of. She stepped between them. No. Aiden's voice was hoarse, desperate. But Ivy was already moving. Already placing herself directly in the path of Morgana's spell. Because if she was going to die anyway, it would be on her terms. It would be saving the person she loved. The magic hit her like a freight train. And Ivy's world exploded into pain and light, and a sensation like being torn apart at the seams. Somewhere distantly, she heard Aiden roaring her name. And then everything went dark. Chapter 6, Darkest Hour. Ivy woke to the sound of arguing and the feeling of being wrapped in ice and fire simultaneously. Every nerve in her body screamed, and when she tried to move, agony lanced through her limbs. Stay still. Aiden's voice, rough and strained, came from somewhere close. Please, Ivy, don't move. She forced her eyes open. She was back in her room at the mansion, lying on the bed with what felt like a dozen blankets piled on top of her. Aiden sat beside her, his face haggard, eyes wild with worry. Clara stood near the door, her expression grim, and there were two other people Ivy didn't recognize. A man in council robes and a woman who radiated magical energy. What happened? Ivy's voice came out as barely a whisper. You did something monumentally stupid and incredibly brave, Aiden said, and there was anger mixed with relief in his tone. You threw yourself in front of Morgana's spell. The memories came flooding back. Morgana raising that orb, Aiden on his knees in agony, the decision to shield him with her own body. Did it work? Are you okay? Am I? Aiden's laugh was brittle, almost hysterical. Ivy, you nearly died. You're asking if I'm okay. That's not an answer. His hand found hers, gripping tight enough that she could feel him trembling. I'm fine. Physically unharmed. Emotionally devastated, but fine. The woman with magical energy stepped forward. Miss Thorne. I'm Healer Ravenna from the Supernatural Council. What you did, intercepting that spell, should have killed you instantly. The fact that you're alive is unprecedented. Lucky me, Ivy managed. Not luck. The healer exchanged a glance with the council representative. When you stepped in front of the spell, something extraordinary happened. The curse binding you to Alpha Aiden reacted to the threat. Instead of draining your life force as intended, Morgana's spell collided with the existing curse magic and created a feedback loop. Ivy tried to process that through the fog of pain. In English, please? Aiden squeezed her hand. The curses are fighting each other. Morgana's death spell and her original curse on you are incompatible. They're both trying to fulfill their purposes, but they can't do it simultaneously. It's created a magical stalemate inside you. Which means... Healer Ravenna's expression was sympathetic. It means you're in considerable pain, and will be until we can resolve this conflict. The two spells are essentially tearing you apart from the inside. We have maybe 3 days before your body can't handle the strain anymore. 3 days. Ivy's chest tightened. The third blood moon was in 6 days. She'd gone from a month to 72 hours. There has to be something we can do, Aiden said, and Ivy had never heard such desperation in his voice. There is. The council representative, a severe-looking man with silver hair, stepped forward. Morgana fled the scene, but not before we apprehended her. She's currently in council custody, and we've made it clear that unless she breaks both curses, the one on Miss Thorne and the one preventing you from loving, she'll face charges that could see her stripped of her powers entirely. She'll never agree to that, Aiden said flatly. Revenge is all she has left. She'd rather die than give me what I want. Perhaps. The man's expression was calculating. But we have leverage she doesn't expect. While investigating her estate, we found evidence of other illegal curses, blood magic rituals, even connections to dark artifacts that have been banned for centuries. If she doesn't cooperate, she won't just lose her powers. She'll be imprisoned for the rest of her very long life. Ivy felt a flicker of hope. So she has to break the curses? She has to, or face consequences that even someone as arrogant as Morgana can't ignore. The representative looked at Aiden. However, there's a complication. Even if she agrees to break the curses, the process will take time. Time we may not have. Miss Thorne's condition is deteriorating rapidly. Then we accelerate the timeline, Aiden said. Whatever it takes. There is one other option. Healer Ravenna spoke carefully, as if afraid of the reaction her words might cause. The feedback loop between the spells is sustained by Miss Thorne's humanity. If she were to be turned... No. Ivy's voice was stronger than she felt. Not like this. Not as a last resort while I'm dying. Aiden's eyes met hers, pain and understanding warring in their depths. Ivy. We had a deal, remember? Turning me was the fail-safe, the absolute last option. We still have 3 days. We still have time to break this the right way. She tried to sit up, gasped at the pain, and Aiden immediately helped support her. I'm not giving up yet. You're impossibly stubborn, he said, but there was fondness beneath the frustration. You wouldn't like me if I wasn't. Something flickered across his face, surprise followed by something that looked almost like wonder. No, he said softly. I suppose I wouldn't. The council representative cleared his throat. We'll give you privacy to discuss your options. Alpha Aiden, Healer Ravenna, and I will be downstairs if you need us. We'll continue negotiating with Morgana, and keep you updated on her response. After they left, Clara approached the bed. Can I get you anything, Miss Thorne? Water? Something to eat? Just some water, please. Ivy waited until Clara left to fetch it before turning to Aiden. Tell me the truth. How bad is this? He was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing patterns on the back of her hand. You're dying, Ivy. Slower than if Morgana's spell had hit you directly, but you're still dying. The pain you're in now? It's only going to get worse. By tomorrow you won't be able to move. By the day after, you'll be begging for unconsciousness. Comforting. You asked for truth. His voice cracked slightly. The truth is, watching you suffer like this is the worst torture I've experienced in 300 years. Worse than anything Morgana ever did to me. Because this time it's someone he stopped, jaw clenching. Someone you what? Aiden looked away. Someone I care about. Deeply. In ways I thought I wasn't capable of anymore. Ivy's heart stuttered. The curse on you. The one preventing you from loving. I know. I shouldn't be able to feel this way. But I do. He turned back to her, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole her breath. Maybe it's because your curse is connected to mine. Maybe it's because you're dying and that's breaking down my walls. Or maybe. He paused, searching her face. Maybe it's because what we've built these past days has nothing to do with curses and everything to do with two broken people finding something real in each other. Aiden, I'm not asking you to say anything back. I know you can't trust your feelings with the curse forcing you to love me. But I needed you to know. Whatever happens, even if we can't break these curses, even if you decide to be turned or worse, I needed you to know that you matter to me. That knowing you has been worth every moment of pain. Tears spilled down Ivy's cheeks. I love you too. And not just because of the curse. I know the difference now. The curse makes me need you, makes being apart painful. But loving you? That's all me. That's my choice. Aiden leaned forward, pressing his forehead against hers. Then let me turn you. Let me save you. Not yet. Please. Give me these 3 days. If Morgana breaks the curses, we can have a real future. A real choice. But if you turn me now, we'll never know what could have been. And if you die? Then at least I'll die knowing I fought for something real. Ivy lifted her free hand to cup his cheek, feeling the coolness of his skin. Promise me. 3 days. If the curses aren't broken by then, I'll let you turn me. But until then we fight. Aiden closed his eyes, leaning into her touch. You're going to be the death of me, Ivy Thorne. Good thing you're already dead then. He huffed a sound that might have been a laugh, and when he opened his eyes again, they were glowing faintly gold. Very well. 3 days. But I'm not leaving your side for a single moment. If you're going to be stubborn about this, you'll have to tolerate my constant hovering. I think I can manage that. Clara returned with water and a tray of food, though Ivy could barely stomach anything. As evening fell, Aiden dismissed the staff and settled into the chair beside her bed, refusing to leave even when Ivy insisted she'd be fine alone. I told you, he said, pulling out a book from the shelf. Not leaving. You'll have to get used to me reading aloud. I'm told I have a pleasant voice. You do, Ivy admitted, then added mischievously. Even if you are a dramatic vampire who thinks he's cursed to be alone forever. I am cursed to be alone forever. Or was. The jury's still out. Such an optimist. As Aiden began reading, some ancient text about curse theory that should have been boring but wasn't when filtered through his rich voice, Ivy felt the pain in her body ease slightly. Not gone but manageable. Being close to him helped just like always. But beneath the comfort, fear lurked. 3 days. 72 hours to convince a vindictive witch to break curses she'd spent centuries maintaining. To defy fate and create a future that probably shouldn't exist. The odds weren't great. But looking at Aiden, watching the way firelight caught in his dark hair and softened his features, Ivy realized she didn't care about odds. She cared about fighting for every possible moment with this impossible man who'd somehow become her entire world. Even if those moments were numbered. Even if the darkness was closing in. They'd fight together until the very end. Chapter 7: The Turning Point. The next morning brought worse pain and better news in equal measure. Ivy woke to find Aiden still beside her, though he'd moved from the chair to sit on the edge of the bed, his hand clasped around hers even in sleep. Except vampires didn't really sleep. He'd simply gone into the meditative state they used instead. His eyes opened the moment she stirred. "How do you feel?" he asked immediately. "Like I've been hit by a truck, dragged for a mile, and then hit by the truck again for good measure." "So, better than expected?" Despite everything, Ivy smiled. "Your sense of humor is terrible. 300 years of practice." He helped her sit up carefully, adjusting pillows behind her back. "The council representative wants to speak with us. Are you up for it?" Ivy nodded, though even that small movement sent pain radiating through her skull. A few minutes later, the silver-haired man from yesterday entered, accompanied by healer Ravenna. "Miss Thorne, Alpha Aiden." He inclined his head respectfully. "I have news. Morgana has agreed to negotiate." Aiden stiffened. "What are her terms?" "She'll break the curse on Miss Thorne, but only the one forcing her to love you. The magical feedback loop will stop, and Miss Thorne will recover." The representative paused. "However, she refuses to break your curse, Alpha. She says that's a punishment you've earned and will keep until the day you turn to dust." "Unacceptable," Aiden said flatly. "Wait." Ivy grabbed his arm before he could say more. "If she breaks my curse, I'll live? The pain stops, the death sentence is lifted." "Yes, but..." "Then we take it." Aiden turned to her, eyes wide. "Ivy, no. My curse means I can't love you the way you deserve. We'd be trapped in a relationship where you feel everything and I feel nothing." "Except that's not true." Ivy held his gaze steadily. "You already told me you care about me, that you feel things you thought impossible. Your curse isn't absolute. We've been undermining it this whole time just by building a real connection." She turned to the representative. "What exactly does Aiden's curse prevent? What are the specific terms?" The man pulled out a tablet and scrolled through documents. According to the original curse text filed with the council, he shall not love as a man loves a woman, shall not know the warmth of romantic devotion, shall remain forever cold and untouched by passion's flame. That's the core of it. Ivy's mind raced. It says romantic love, but there are other kinds of love, other types of connection. Friendship, partnership, deep caring that doesn't fit traditional romance. Are you suggesting we redefine our relationship to circumvent the curse? Aiden's expression was caught between hope and disbelief. I'm suggesting that Morgana's curse was written 300 years ago by someone who saw love in very specific, very narrow terms. But love isn't one thing, Aiden. It's 1,000 different things, and maybe, just maybe, some of them aren't covered by the curse's parameters. Healer Ravenna leaned forward, interest lighting her features. That's actually brilliant. Curses are bound by the exact wording of their terms. If Alpha Aiden can feel deep affection, loyalty, partnership, friendship, even if he can't feel traditional romantic love, those emotions could form the basis of a genuine bond. This is semantics, Aiden protested, but Ivy could hear the hope creeping into his voice. No, it's a loophole. And if there's one thing I've learned about magic, it's that loopholes are everything. Ivy squeezed his hand. You said you care about me. You said knowing me has made you feel alive. Those are real feelings, Aiden. Maybe they don't look like the fairy tale romance Morgana's curse was designed to prevent, but they're still love. Just a different kind. The council representative was nodding slowly. If we accept Morgana's terms, break only Miss Thorne's curse, you'd both be free to choose your path forward. Miss Thorne would no longer be forced to feel anything, and Alpha Aiden could continue developing whatever connection he's capable of forming. And if it's not enough? Aiden asked quietly. If what I can feel doesn't measure up to what Ivy deserves? Ivy turned his face toward hers. Then we'll deal with that together. But I'd rather have a real, complicated, imperfect relationship with you than a perfect fantasy with anyone else. And I'd definitely rather have that than be dead. For a long moment, Aiden just looked at her, emotions warring across his face. Then slowly he nodded. All right. We accept Morgana's terms. Break Ivy's curse. The representative pulled out a phone. I'll inform Morgana immediately. The ritual can be performed this afternoon if she cooperates fully. After he left to make the call, Healer Ravenna approached the bed. Miss Thorne, I should warn you, when the curse breaks, it's going to be disorienting. You've been magically compelled to love Alpha Aiden for weeks now. Once that compulsion lifts, you'll need to sort through which feelings were genuine and which were manufactured. I know, Ivy said. I'm ready for that. Are you? The healer's eyes were kind but probing. It's one thing to say you'll choose him freely. It's another to face the reality that much of what you've felt has been artificial. Not all of it, Ivy said firmly. The curse made me need him, made separation painful. But everything I learned about him, his kindness, his pain, his terrible sense of humor, that was real. My admiration for his strength, my respect for how he survived centuries of isolation, she paused, searching for the right words. My genuine affection for who he is as a person. The curse didn't create those things. It just forced proximity so they could develop. Aiden's hand tightened around hers. When the curse breaks and you're free, truly free, if you decide you want to leave, I'll understand. I'll make sure you're protected from Morgana. Set up with whatever you need to start over. No obligations, no pressure. Stop planning my exit before we've even started, Ivy said. Have a little faith. Faith in what? In us. In the fact that sometimes broken people find each other and make something beautiful out of the pieces. She smiled, though pain was making her vision blur. In the possibility that 300-year-old curses can be outsmarted by two stubborn idiots who refuse to give up. A sound escaped Aiden that might have been a laugh or a sob. Stubborn idiots. Is that what we are? The stubbornest. The afternoon brought a whirlwind of activity. Morgana was transported to the mansion under heavy council guard. Her magic bound by enchanted chains. She looked older than her appearance suggested. Her beautiful face twisted with bitterness. So eager to save your little pet. She sneered at Aiden as council members set up the ritual space in the library. You'll regret this. When she's free and realizes she never really loved you. When she leaves and you're alone again. You'll regret defying me. The only thing I regret, Aiden said coldly, is that I share your blood. Morgana's laugh was bitter. You're more like me than you want to admit, boy. We both know how to destroy the things we love. The difference is, I'm honest about it. The ritual itself was complex. Healer Ravenna oversaw it personally, with 3 other council magic users assisting. Ivy had to lie in the center of a chalk circle while Morgana, still chained, recited the countercurse in a language that made Ivy's bones ache. Aiden stood just outside the circle, close enough to touch if the barrier weren't in place. His eyes never left Ivy's face. The magic built slowly, a pressure in the air that made it hard to breathe. Then Morgana spoke a final word, and something inside Ivy shattered. The curse mark on her wrist flared brilliant white, then faded to nothing, leaving only unmarked skin. The black thread connecting her to Aiden, the one she'd watched transform from curse to something more, shimmered and reformed, no longer black but a pure, clear silver. And the compulsion, that constant aching need to be near him, simply stopped. Ivy gasped. The sudden absence of it almost more shocking than its presence had been. She felt lighter, freer, but also strangely empty, like a part of her had been carved away. It's done, Healer Ravenna said. The curse is broken. The barrier dissolved, and Aiden was there instantly, helping Ivy to her feet. How do you feel? Strange. Really strange. Ivy looked up at him, and for the first time in weeks she could see him clearly. Not through the filter of magical compulsion but as he truly was. But the pain is gone. The feedback loop stopped. And his voice was carefully neutral, but she could see the fear in his eyes. And us. Ivy took inventory of her feelings. The desperate, all-consuming need to be near him. That was gone, lifted away with the curse. But underneath it, steady and real, was something else. Affection for this complicated man who'd shown her kindness when he didn't have to. Respect for his strength and his vulnerability. Genuine caring that had nothing to do with magic and everything to do with the connection they'd built. It wasn't the fairy tale romance the curse had promised. It was something quieter, more complex, and infinitely more real. Still here, she said softly. Still choosing you. The relief that flooded Aiden's face was almost painful to witness. He pulled her into his arms and Ivy went willingly, wrapping herself around him and breathing in his familiar scent. Thank you, he whispered against her hair. Thank you for staying. Behind them, Morgana made a disgusted sound. Pathetic. Both of you. You think you've won, but you've won nothing. He still can't love you, girl. Not really. And you'll spend your life settling for scraps when you could have had enough. The council representative's voice cracked like a whip. You've fulfilled your obligation. Now you'll face the consequences of your other crimes. As Ivy discovered that Aiden was terrible at modern technology, that he had a weakness for old black and white movies, that he still wrote letters by hand because he liked the ritual of it. She learned that he'd been a physician in his human life and still kept medical journals, studying advances in a field he could no longer practice. She learned that he had nightmares about the night Sarah died. Even though he didn't technically sleep, Aiden learned that Ivy had a talent for seeing patterns in things, not just the threads but in data and behavior in the world around her. He learned that she'd grown up in foster care, bouncing between homes, which was why the threads fascinated her so much. They showed her the connection she'd always craved but never had. He learned that she cried during sad movies but laughed at horror films, that she couldn't cook to save her life but made excellent tea. They learned each other's scars and strengths, fears and dreams. And through it all, the silver thread connecting them grew brighter. But Morgana wasn't done with them yet. 6 weeks after the curse breaking, Clara burst into the library where Ivy and Aiden were researching curse theory. They'd become mildly obsessed with understanding the magic that had bound them. Alpha, we have a problem. A big one. Aiden looked up from his book. What is it? Morgana escaped council custody 3 days ago. We just received word. Clara's expression was grim. And there have been incidents. 3 human-vampire bonding ceremonies disrupted by dark magic. 2 witches found drained of their power. She's building towards something. Ivy felt ice flood her veins. She's gathering power. For another curse. Or something worse. Aiden stood, his entire demeanor shifting into the commanding alpha she rarely saw anymore. Clara, contact the council. Tell them I'm calling an emergency clan meeting. If Morgana's targeting vampires and witches, she's not just coming after me. She's declaring war on the supernatural community. Over the next few hours, the mansion transformed into a command center. Vampires from the Nocturne clan arrived, along with representatives from other clans and the council. Ivy sat in on the meetings, using her ability to see threads to identify who could be trusted and who might be compromised by Morgana's influence. It was during one of these meetings that healer Ravenna pulled Ivy aside. I need to show you something, the healer said quietly. It's about your curse, the one that was broken. They went to a private study, and Ravenna pulled out a thick file. After the ritual, I did some research into the specific curse Morgana used. And I found something disturbing. More disturbing than a vindictive witch trying to kill me? Potentially, yes. Ravenna opened the file to reveal pages of dense magical text. The curse Morgana placed on you wasn't original. It was adapted from an ancient spell designed to create blood bonds between vampires and humans. The kind of bond that once formed can't be broken without killing both parties. Ivy's stomach dropped. But the curse was broken. I'm fine, Aiden's fine. The compulsion aspect was broken, yes. But the underlying bond. Ravenna pointed to a diagram. Look at this. The curse didn't just force you to love him. It created an actual magical connection between you. When you threw yourself in front of Morgana's death spell, when your life was threatened, that bond activated fully. You're not cursed anymore, Ivy. But you are bound to Aiden on a level deeper than magic can easily undo. What does that mean? It means that if something happens to him, you'll feel it. If he's seriously injured or killed, the backlash could kill you too. And vice versa. Ravenna's expression was sympathetic. You're bonded, Ivy. For life. Maybe longer if you choose to be turned eventually. Ivy sat down heavily. Does Aiden know? I haven't told him yet. I wanted you to hear it first to decide how to handle it. The healer paused. I know this isn't what you chose. The curse may be broken, but its effects linger. If you want, the council can try to sever the bond entirely. It would be risky and painful, but it's possible. For a long moment, Ivy just sat there processing. She was bonded to Aiden, permanently connected to a vampire who couldn't love her the way the stories promised, who came with centuries of baggage and a murderous grandmother, who would outlive everyone she knew by millennia if she stayed human. It should have terrified her. Instead, all she felt was a strange sense of rightness. No, she said finally. Don't sever it. I chose Aiden when I had free will. I'll choose him now, bond and all. Ravenna smiled. I thought you might say that. But there's one more thing you should know. What? The bond works both ways. If you're connected to him this deeply, he's connected to you too. Which means his curse, the one preventing romantic love, might be affected by your presence in ways we can't predict. The healer's eyes gleamed with interest. You're human, bonded to a cursed vampire, choosing to stay despite all logic suggesting you should run. That kind of selfless, genuine connection? That's exactly what Morgana's curse was designed to prevent. You might be the loophole that breaks him free. Before Ivy could respond, an explosion rocked the mansion. Screams and shouts echoed from the main hall. Ivy and Ravenna ran toward the sound, arriving to find chaos. The windows had shattered, smoke filling the air. And in the center of it all stood Morgana. Except she looked different now. Wrong. Her skin had a grayish tint. Her eyes burned with unnatural green fire, and dark magic crackled around her like living shadow. I told you, she said, her voice echoing with power. I told you that you hadn't won. Aiden appeared from another entrance, vampires flanking him. Morgana, you're outnumbered. Surrender to the council and face justice. Justice. She laughed and the sound made windows crack. I've lived 400 years, boy. I've outlasted kingdoms and councils. You think some bureaucrats with rules can stop me? She raised her hands and dark magic swirled. I came here to finish what I started. You cost me everything, Aiden. My daughter, my plans, my freedom. Now I'll take everything from you. Her eyes landed on Ivy, and her smile turned predatory. Starting with her. Aiden moved faster than Ivy had ever seen, putting himself between her and Morgana. You'll have to go through me first. That can be arranged. The battle that followed was chaos. Morgana's magic lashed out, striking vampires and witches alike. Aiden fought back with his own power, the strength and speed of a 300-year-old alpha, combined with strategic brilliance. But Morgana was stronger, fueled by dark magic and centuries of hatred. Ivy watched helplessly as Aiden was thrown across the room, crashing into a wall hard enough to leave cracks. Through their bond she felt his pain, felt his determination to protect her, and she made a decision. She stepped forward, into the clear space between the combatants. Morgana, stop. Everyone froze. Morgana's eyes narrowed. The little human speaks. How charming. You want revenge on Aiden because he refused to be your weapon. Because he chose love and kindness over power and cruelty. Ivy's voice was steady despite her racing heart. But you're the one who made him what he is. You forced him to become a vampire. Cursed him to be alone. Destroyed everyone he ever loved. All because he wouldn't be the monster you wanted. Your point. My point is that despite everything you did, you failed. Aiden isn't a monster. He's kind and protective and capable of caring deeply, even if he can't love in traditional ways. He's survived 300 years of your cruelty and remained fundamentally good. Ivy took another step forward. You didn't break him. You made him stronger. Morgana's expression twisted with rage. Foolish girl. And I love him. The words rang out clearly. Not because of a curse this time. Not because magic forced me to. But because he's worth loving. Because he's proven over and over that he's nothing like you. Through their bond, Ivy felt Aiden's shock, his hope, his overwhelming emotion. I choose him, Ivy continued. And no curse, no dark magic, no vindictive which can change that. So if you want to hurt him, you'll have to hurt me too. And if you hurt me, you'll hurt him through our bond. Either way, you lose. For a long moment, Morgana just stared at her. Then she threw back her head and laughed. Oh, this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. You love him, he's bonded to you, and neither of you realizes. She cut herself off, her expression shifting to something calculating. Tell me, Aiden, how do you feel about your little human now? Do you care for her? Admire her bravery? Yes, Aiden said, moving to stand beside Ivy. I care for her deeply. But you don't love her. You can't. My curse prevents it. Perhaps. Or perhaps your understanding of love is too limited to recognize what I feel. Aiden took Ivy's hand. I may not experience romantic love the way you defined it in your curse. But I feel something for Ivy that's real and powerful and entirely my choice. Call it what you will, it's mine. Morgana's face contorted with fury. No. No. You're supposed to be alone. You're supposed to suffer. I did suffer. For 300 years, I suffered exactly as you wanted. Aiden's voice was calm, almost gentle. But Ivy changed that. Not because of your curse, in spite of it. She saw past the monster you tried to make me and found something worth saving. I'll kill her. Morgana shrieked. I'll drain her life force. Use her death to fuel the darkest magic. You'll do nothing, a new voice said. The council representative appeared, flanked by a dozen heavily armed magic users. Morgana, you're under arrest for escape from custody, attempted murder, illegal use of dark magic, and conspiracy to commit magical genocide. Your crimes have finally exceeded even your political protections. You can't touch me. You're finished. The representative nodded and magical bindings wrapped around Morgana, cutting off her power mid-sentence. This time there will be no negotiation, no deals. You'll be tried, sentenced, and imprisoned in a facility where you can never harm anyone again. As they dragged her away, still screaming threats and curses, Morgana's eyes locked on Aiden one final time. This isn't over. You'll regret defying me. You'll. The doors closed, cutting off her voice. Silence filled the damaged hall. Then slowly, the gathered vampires and witches began to applaud. Aiden had faced down his grandmother and won. The nightmare that had haunted him for 3 centuries was finally truly over. Ivy turned to him, seeing the disbelief and relief warring on his face. It's really done, she said softly. You're free. Aiden pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. We're free, he corrected. Both of us. And as the sun began to rise outside the shattered windows, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that Aiden would never see without pain, Ivy realized he was right. They were free to choose each other, free to build whatever kind of relationship they wanted, free from curses and compulsions and ancient vendettas. It wasn't the fairy tale she'd imagined as a child. But it was real and messy and infinitely more precious because of it. Chapter 9. Satisfying conclusion. 3 months later, Ivy stood in the mansion's garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Behind her, she heard familiar footsteps. You'll miss the sun, Aiden said, coming to stand beside her. If you go through with this. Ivy smiled. I know. But I'll gain something too. They'd been having this conversation for weeks now. The council had offered to sever their bond entirely, giving Ivy complete freedom to return to a normal human life. But she'd refused. And more than that, she'd started seriously considering Aiden's original offer, to be turned. You don't have to do this for me, Aiden said quietly. You know that, right? I'm content with whatever you choose. We have time, decades potentially if we're careful. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for us. Ivy turned to face him. I want more than decades, Aiden. I want centuries. I want to explore this connection we've built. See where it leads, watch the world change together. And I can't do that if I stay human. But immortality is terrifying and exciting and exactly what I want. She took his hands. These past 3 months have been incredible. We've built something real, something that has nothing to do with curses or compulsion. And I'm choosing to make that permanent. Over the past months, their relationship had evolved into something neither of them had expected. It wasn't the passionate, all-consuming romance of novels and movies. It was quieter, steadier, built on genuine friendship, mutual respect, and a deep caring that transcended traditional definitions of love. Aiden couldn't love her the way his curse defined romantic love. But he could be her partner, her best friend, her companion through eternity. He could make her laugh, challenge her intellectually, support her dreams and stand beside her through whatever came. And for Ivy that was more than enough. There's something I need to tell you, Aiden said, his expression serious. Something I discovered while researching my curse with Ravenna. What is it? The curse says I can't love as a man loves a woman. But... He paused, choosing his words carefully. But I think I've been loving you all along. Just not in the way the curse anticipated. The affection I feel, the protectiveness, the joy your presence brings me, the way my existence feels fuller with you in it. What is that if not love? Just a different kind than Morgana imagined when she crafted her curse. Ivy's breath caught. Are you saying? I'm saying that maybe we've been looking at this wrong. Maybe the curse didn't prevent me from loving you. Maybe it just prevented me from recognizing what I felt as love, because it didn't match the template I was cursed to be denied. His eyes met hers, vulnerable and hopeful. I love you, Ivy. Not in spite of the curse, but through a loophole we created together. And if you choose to be turned, if you choose to spend eternity with me, I promise to spend that eternity showing you in every way I can. Tears spilled down Ivy's cheeks. I love you too. And I choose this. I choose us. Then let's make it official. Aiden pulled a small box from his pocket. I know traditional marriage doesn't work the same way in vampire culture, but I wanted to give you something to mark this decision. A promise that whatever we call this partnership, companionship, love, it's permanent and real. He opened the box to reveal a ring. Simple silver with tiny embedded stones that caught the fading light. The stones are enchanted. They'll change color based on the strength of our bond. Right now they're silver like the thread you see connecting us. But Ravenna thinks they might shift to gold over time, as our connection deepens. Ivy held out her hand, and Aiden slipped the ring onto her finger. Fit perfectly. When? She asked. When do we do the turning? Whenever you're ready. Tonight, next week, next year. It's your choice. Ivy thought about it. About her human life, which had been lonely and directionless until the curse brought her here. About the future stretching ahead, full of possibility and adventure. About the man standing before her, who'd somehow become her whole world without either of them quite noticing. Tonight, she decided. Let's do it tonight. I don't want to wait anymore. So as the sun fully set and stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, Ivy and Aiden returned to the mansion. The transformation would hurt. Aiden was honest about that. But it would also free her from human frailty, from aging, from the weakness that made their bond dangerous. Clara, Mara, and healer Ravenna were there to help with the process. They'd prepared everything, including magical aids to ease the transition. Last chance to change your mind, Aiden said as Ivy settled into the bed they'd prepared. Not changing my mind. I'm sure. Then let's begin. The turning itself was brutal. Ivy had expected pain, but the reality was worse than anything she'd imagined. Fire in her veins, agony in every cell as her body died and reformed into something new. She screamed until her voice gave out, clutched Aiden's hand hard enough that she thought she might break his bones. Impossible, given vampire strength, but still. And through it all, Aiden stayed beside her, murmuring encouragement, offering what comfort he could. When it was finally over, when Ivy opened her eyes to find the world sharper, brighter, more vivid than she'd ever seen it, Aiden was the first thing she looked at. And he was beautiful. Not just objectively beautiful the way she'd recognized before, but beautiful in a way that made her chest ache, that made her want to memorize every detail of his face, that filled her with an emotion so powerful it had no name. How do you feel? He asked softly. Like I can see for the first time. Ivy sat up, marveling at the strength in her limbs, the absence of fatigue, the way sounds and scents painted the world in new dimensions. This is incredible. And the bond? Ravenna asked. How does it feel now? Ivy focused inward, finding the connection between her and Aiden. It was stronger now, clearer. And when she looked at him with her new vampire vision, she could see something she'd never seen before. A thread connecting them, visible even to her transformed eyes. But it wasn't silver anymore, and it wasn't the black of the original curse. It was gold. Pure brilliant gold. Aiden, she breathed. Look. He followed her gaze and his eyes widened. Vampires couldn't normally see the threads, but this one was so bright, so powerful that even he could perceive it. Is that? He looked at Ravenna. What does gold mean? The healer was staring at the thread, wonder on her face. Gold is the color of true love. The deepest, most profound connection two souls can share. Aiden shook his head. But my curse was circumvented, Ivy said, understanding dawning. We built something so real, so genuine, that it transcended the curse's limitations. You said it yourself. You've been loving me all along, just differently than Morgana anticipated. And now that I'm turned, Now that we're both vampires bonded by choice and magic and everything we've been through, the curse can't hold anymore. She cupped his face gently. You're free, Aiden. Completely free. And you love me. Really truly love me. Tears, impossible for a vampire, but they're nonetheless gathered in Aiden's eyes. I do. God's help me, I do. They kissed then, and it was everything Ivy had hoped for and nothing like she'd imagined. It was passion and tenderness, friendship and romance. 300 years of loneliness meeting a lifetime of searching and finding home in each other. When they parted, Aiden was smiling. That rare, genuine smile that transformed his face. So what now? We have eternity ahead of us. What do you want to do with it? Ivy thought about all the possibilities, travel, adventure, building a life together in a world that no longer felt quite so lonely. Everything. I want to do everything with you. Then let's start tonight. What would you like to do first? Honestly, I'd like to go downstairs and tell everyone the good news. Then maybe curl up in the library and read terrible vampire romance novels while you complain about how inaccurate they are. Aiden laughed. A real full laugh that filled the room with warmth. That sounds perfect. As they headed downstairs hand in hand, Ivy caught sight of her reflection in a mirror. She looked different, paler, sharper, more ethereal. But her eyes were the same, and more importantly, the happiness radiating from her was entirely genuine. She'd started this journey as a cursed human, desperate to survive. She was ending it as a vampire, bonded to someone who'd become her everything, with eternity stretching ahead like a promise. Not the ending she'd expected, but infinitely better than anything she could have planned. The mansion was full of people celebrating. News of Morgana's final imprisonment had spread, and the supernatural community was rejoicing. When Ivy and Aiden appeared, newly bonded and obviously in love, the celebration intensified. Clara hugged Ivy tightly. Welcome to the family, dear. Officially this time. Mara grinned. Does this mean I can stop pretending I wasn't shipping you two the whole time? You were shipping us? Aiden asked, bemused. From day one. It was so obvious you were perfect for each other. Mara winked at Ivy. Even if you did take the scenic route to figuring it out. As the night wore on, Ivy found herself surrounded by people who'd become family in the short months she'd been here. The clan members who'd fought beside them against Morgana. The council representatives who'd helped break the curses. Even some of the staff who'd made the mansion feel like home. But through it all, her attention kept returning to Aiden. To the way he smiled when he caught her eye. To the gold thread binding them together. Visible evidence of a love that had overcome impossible odds. Later, when the party finally wound down and they found themselves alone in the library as planned, Ivy curled up beside Aiden on the sofa, a truly terrible vampire romance novel in her hands. This is awful, she announced after reading a few pages. The vampire in this literally sparkles. I warned you about modern vampire fiction. You did. You were right. This is painful. She kept reading anyway, and Aiden kept commenting on every inaccuracy, and they kept laughing together until the sun began to rise. It was perfect. Messy and weird and nothing like the fairy tales, but perfect nonetheless. As dawn approached and they prepared to retreat to the light-sealed chambers where they'd sleep through the day, Ivy paused to look out at the gardens one last time. Any regrets? Aiden asked softly. Ivy thought about it honestly. About the son she'd never see again without pain. About the human life she'd left behind. About all the normal things she'd given up. None, she said firmly. Not a single one. Good. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Because I intend to spend the next few centuries making sure you never do. Just a few centuries? Well, eternity is a long time. Might as well pace ourselves. Ivy laughed, leaning back into his embrace. Outside, the sun crested the horizon, painting the sky in colors she could appreciate but no longer safely witness. But she didn't mourn the loss. She had something better than sunlight. She had Aiden, her partner, her best friend, her impossible love who'd somehow become possible. She had a future filled with adventure and growth, and the kind of companionship most people never found. She had forever. And forever, she decided, was just long enough. Hey everyone. Thank you so much for sticking with Ivy and Aiden's journey. If you loved this story, please leave a comment below telling me what your favorite part was. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another story. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.